different angle, and then ask the students to see if they are identical or not. So they will be if they are identical, they are called homomer. And we also learned that physical properties of the enantiomers, they're same, everything, melting point, boiling point, density, polarity, everything, all the spectral properties. And different will be, of course, it's interaction with the biological receptors, but other than biological property, the physical property that which will differ for the enantiomers will be the optical property. So optical rotations will be same magnitude but with opposite sides. And diastereomers can have everything different. So they have only the molecular formula and mass are same, but they have a boiling point different, melting point, density, thermodynamical, other properties can be different, and also optical properties. And these are, I have shown, some of the ways you can draw a structure on a piece of paper, but it gives a, feeling of three-dimensionality. You can mute the, everybody, so some sound is coming. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyone saying anything? Okay, and this kind of representation, if you can see pointer option, laser pointer. So this is called sawhorse projection. So it gives a feeling that this portion of the molecule is backside and this portion is towards you. And then you have Newman projection. We'll learn about it when we learn about conformation. Fisher projection we have learned, you draw the structure vertical and horizontal lines. And the horizontal lines, the substituents are coming above the plane, like as I have shown here. And of course, you don't write like this. You write like a straight line, not a dashed line or the bold line. Another one is shown here. This OH dash kind of representation, and I like this kind of representation. If you see this tartaric acid structure shown here, one hydroxyl is up, one hydroxyl is down, and normally often we don't write the hydrogen. So if we don't, you are seeing that only three substituents are shown: hydroxyl, and this side carboxylic group, and the right hand side these groups. And it is understood that it has a hydrogen, and in this case the hydrogen is below the plane, like I have. And similarly, this hydroxyl, I have not shown the hydrogen, but it is implied that hydrogen is there and hydrogen is above the plane, like I have shown here. So often we write these structures like this. There is hydroxyl coming up, hydroxyl coming down. And if you rotate this bond around, like as shown here, you can see that this substituent now will appear on the same side of this hydroxyl. So when I write in the zigzag fashion, so this hydroxyl is up, this hydroxyl is down. But if I rotate this around this bond by 180 degree, then you can see that this hydroxyl, which was below the plane, now it is coming up. And of course, this is on the same side we have written hydroxyl. So this like a practice you can do, and it will give you a feeling of the three-dimensionality of the molecule. Sometimes, some other terminologies people use, but I will not confuse you. I am just showing it. I don't know whether this was there in the class notes or not, but don't worry about it. It is like a, if I write like this, what you call CH2OH and CHO is called molecule called erythrose, and then threose, some sugar molecule. Then hydroxyl is up and one hydroxyl down. We sometimes call it erythroform, and it basically sometimes we also use the terminology called anti. Anti means like anti or anti. So one hydroxyl is below the plane. They are not, like a pointing in the same direction. This hydroxyl is above the plane. Whereas on the right hand side, what you have, this is sometimes people call it thrioform. And sometimes we still use the terminology called syn form, that hydroxyl and this hydroxyl are on the same side of the plane. Both of them are below the plane of the paper. So this is basically, like a different way the molecule will be presented to you, but do not get confused. And you basically have to understand the three-dimensionality so that you can determine the stereo configuration of R and S configuration of these molecules and see whether the molecule is chiral or not. As I said, like enantiomers, they have a same magnitude of optical activity, and a substance is optically active if it rotates the plane of polarized light. And in order for a substance to exhibit optical activity, it must be chiral. So some inherent dissymmetry should be there in the. And of course, like if you talk about an enantiomer, the one enantiomer must be present in excess of the other. If you have a mixture in equal amounts, you don't see any optical activity, but at least one of them is more, then you will see some. It is normally we measure it at wavelength of 589 nanometer. This is the wavelength of the yellow light. Sometimes we call it D line of sodium. This is the light propagating. And normally, like a light, it vibrates in all different, like directions, different planes. And then when this light is passed through a nickel prism, then we get a polarized light. So this polarized light is vibrating only in one plane, and this is called the plane polarized light. And this plane polarized light, when it passes through a sample solution, which is chiral in nature as shown here, then it will undergo some rotation. A little bit, the plane will be rotated, and we measure this angle, and this is called, like a rotating observed rotation. And we use normally to define a chiral compound its physical property. It's a unit called specific rotation, and we have put this into the parentheses. Then as D we write, D is like a D line of sodium. 20 is temperature, it could be 22, it could be 25, and is equal to alpha divided by CL. Alpha is the observed rotation, in degree, and C is the concentration in gram per ml, and L is the normally length of the tube in decimeter. And if it is shows the positive sign, rotation, then we call it a plus, and sometimes it is designated as small d, and it is clockwise rotation. And then levorotatory will be sometimes denoted as L. It is counterclockwise rotation. So you measure this rotation in a machine, and then you get plus 233, and it has it does not depend on how many chiral centers you have in the molecule, because sucrose, for example, or the sugar that you take all the time, it has 10 chiral center, but it has like a specific rotation less than penicillin. Camphor has 2 chiral center. Monosodium glutamate has only 1 chiral center. Cholesterol, 8 chiral centers. Its specific rotation is negative, minus morphine minus 132, and so on. Now, one question often people ask, that if this one is plus 233, why don't we say that it is, like a minus, how much it will be, say 127. So then, because what we do, you can see a specific rotation is alpha by CL. So depends on the concentration. So if I measure some value, suppose 233 degree for 1 gram, and suppose I do another experiment 0.1 gram per ml, the observed rotation will be less. So it will be like a 23.3. And then specific rotation, of course, since we are dividing by the concentration, and then it will become 233. So people have done this measurement over different concentration range, and then determined that this should be called positive, and not a like a penicillin. We do not call the specific rotation minus 127. We call it plus 233, and a racemic mixture, a mixture containing equal amounts of enantiomer. That means if you have a chiral compound and both the enantiomers are present in the same amount, 50-50, then we call it a racemic mixture. And this racemic mixture will be optically inactive because one component will show the specific rotation, say +10, other one will show -10, and statistically it will get balanced, and then you get overall thing you'll see is alpha equal to 0. And a sample that is optically inactive, so can either be achiral. So it can be, as I said, like it could be a racemic mixture, equal amount of both the enantiomers, or it could be not a chiral molecule. So if there is no chirality, so then it will not show any optical activity, or it could be a meso compound. That means internally there is a plane of symmetry or something like that, and so it, although it has the chiral centers, but it will not show any optical activity. I have shown here lactic acid, S plus lactic acid and R minus lactic acid. And so this one, I mean, in our body, most of the natural products, they are present in only one enantiomeric form, but this is one of the substrates which remain in the two enantiomeric forms in human being. And sometimes you can also use this exercise. Suppose I have drawn this lactic acid here on my right, and if you write like a Fisher projection, then like how do you write Fisher projection? You write CH3 here, reduced form at the bottom, right? And then on the top you have a CO2H. And this side maybe this OH, and this side is H. So different way of writing a three-dimensional structure, and then you can do this exercise and you will see that what I have written here is a D-lactic acid, right? So although it is a D-lactic acid, in case of glyceraldehyde, let me see if I have written correctly. Yeah, correct. So this is D-lactic acid. But you can see that its specific rotation is minus. So when I was telling you about the glyceraldehyde, so in case of glyceraldehyde, you had a D plus. So this D is basically the configuration of this molecule. It does not represent the specific rotation. And for specific rotation, sometimes people use a small d, but will not get confused here with the two different Ds. And then you have a D minus lactic acid. So D does not always have to be plus. And let's go to the next slide. It is limonene in two different, one from lemon, one from orange. This one has a minus 123, S minus limonene, and this is R plus limonene, and this comes plus 123. Yeah. Okay, and then we'll also use one terminology, how to show that, how much enantiomerically pure the substrate is. So we use a terminology called enantiomeric excess, or in we call it EE. So if you determine the specific rotation of a substrate that has been given to you, suppose there's some sample of limonene, and you can, see that its specific rotation is shown as a plus 109. And but the specific rotation of the pure form of the limonene is can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay.
Sir.
because there's some signage has come that network quality is poor now. Anyway, so if you know the good correct specific rotation, then you divide these two and multiply by 100, and then you can get a number 88.6%, and that is the EE, and that means it has a 88.6% of the plus isomer or R-limonene, and 11.4% will be racemic. So that racemic portion is showing specific, racemic portion showing specific rotation 0. So only 88.6% is showing the specific rotation, and that is why it has come down to 109. And that racemic portion also has a half of the portion is plus and half of the portion is minus. So actual total amount of plus will be whatever it is. I am not able to see the number, 99 point something, 96 point something. Remaining portion will be the minus portion. Other way of determining, if you know the concentration of R, if you know the concentration of S, so concentration of R minus S divided by R plus S, that gives like a specific rotation. Simple way of making, if you know the total amount of R, suppose in an experiment or in a sample you have a 90% R and 10% S, the enantiomeric excess of that sample will be 90 minus 10, so that is 80%. So 80% will be the enantiomeric excess. That means one of the isomer is present in the pure form in 80, remain racemic form. So remember this, how we determine the enantiomeric excess of a sample. Now, what we have learned in this course so far, that we have learned how to say that if a molecule is chiral or not. That is by elements of symmetry, that if you see in the molecule plane of symmetry, or like a center of symmetry or alternate axis of proper axis of symmetry, etc. Then we have learned, once you decide that this molecule is chiral, how to give the R and S configuration into this molecule, and we have learned the physical properties like optical activity of a chiral compound, and now we will learn how to make these chiral centers. So we will learn a lot of reactions where we generate the chiral center. As I said, like chiral centers can be created only in presence of a chiral environment. So when you carry out the reaction, if there is no like a chiral environment, one of the substrate could be chiral, one of the ligands could be chiral, even solvent could be chiral, and many other like a catalyst could be chiral, and so on. So that gives rise to a chiral center. Then we learn how to make those chiral center. There are two kinds of reactions that we'll talk about. One is stereospecific reaction, and which could be enantiospecific or diastereospecific. And then we'll also learn a few examples of stereoselective reaction. So where it can be also both enantioselective as well as diastereoselective. So definitions of these compounds is specific, that is specifically one substrate is getting formed. That means a reaction, or the mechanism ensures that starting material reagent becomes the reaction in such that you can get only one the chiral center in this molecule, no other one is possible. And if it gives rise to enantioselective, enantiomerically pure product, then you call enantiospecific. And if you have one chiral center in the molecule but not in the pure enantiomeric form, and you generate another one, relative stereochemistry, if it is fixed by such kind of reaction, we call it diastereospecific. So one example I have given in the bottom, enantiospecific reaction. I have a complex substrate as shown here. You can see there is one chiral center, and this chiral center, initially we had a OMS. MS is a methane sulfonate, and this is a good leaving group basically. So we are doing an SN2 kind of reaction. So SN2 kind of reaction, N3 will attack here and displace the O, and then you get don't get this substrate here. Like a dashed line means N3 is below the plane, and so you don't get this one. You get an inversion of configuration, because you know that SN2 can lead to inversion of configuration. So this N3 is coming from the top, and you get only this substrate. So since there are other chiral centers in the molecule, we call it enantiospecific. One example of diastereospecific could be you take an allylic alcohol as shown here, and I do cis hydroxylation with osmium tetroxide. So then osmium tetroxide gives you the diol, and hydroxyl can come from the top. And as you can see that when you are putting the hydroxyl from the top, there is one hydrogen here. I have not drawn those hydrogen. And then you can get this one and syn diastereomer. Both are syn diastereomer, or it can come from the other end, other side. Since there is no chiral environment in this molecule, so you'll get equal amounts of both. So we call it, you get a racemic mixture, but relative stereochemistry of these two hydroxyl is determined because of the reagent, that is osmium tetroxide. Let us see this reaction more closely. The mechanism of this reaction, you need not worry about the mechanism, but for your clarity, I want to show here. So this osmium tetroxide, osmium has what the valency 8, and this forms an osmate ester as shown here in the middle. And then by hydrolysis, you get this osmium 6 reagent. And this reaction normally are done with a catalytic amount of osmium tetroxide. You can use the stoichiometric amount also, but osmium also is like a toxic and not a good chemical to handle. So we use a catalytic amount. And then NMO is N-methyl morpholine oxide, which can oxidize the osmium 6 back to the osmium 8. And then this reaction goes on. And then what you get here, this R is, olefin is written as a trans. So R is one side here, R is other side, other carbon R is on the bottom side. And when you draw the three-dimensional structure, you can see that one R has gone below the plane, one R has gone above the plane. And if you want to draw these chiral centers in terms of hydroxyl group, one hydroxyl will be above the plane, this one here will be above the plane, this one will be below the plane. But if you rotate one of the this bond, the in between bond, then you can see the zigzag fashion, you say, and then you get a product as shown here, that both the hydroxyl and above the plane. But again, like you don't have to remember this by just memorizing it. You just do this exercise on piece of paper, and then you will get to know that osmium tetroxide gives you a syn diol. And you can do this reaction with potassium permanganate also, but under cold and dilute conditions. Under concentrated condition, KMnO4 can also cleave this diol further. Further oxidation can take place. And same thing here, you get like it can come from the top, or it can come from the bottom. And you get, of course, equal amount of both. So one of the, if you draw the stereochemistry here, you can see this is S and S. If it comes from the bottom, you get RR. So since you get the SS and RR two enantiomers, and you get equal amount, so it will be a racemic mixture. And some other reaction, I have talked about hydroxylation, hydrogenation, catalytic hydrogenation. In presence of platinum catalyst or palladium catalyst, you use hydrogen. So it also gives cis addition, like a hydrogen coming from the cell. So you have a symmetrical olefin as shown here, and you get hydrogenated this center, and then you can see that one center is S, one center is R. I draw a Fischer projection of this product, it will look like this. And you can see that there's a plane of symmetry passing through this molecule. So this is a meso product. And if it is a trans double bond, so this was a cis double bond. And if it is a trans double bond, why trans? Because one side you have ethyl, this side also you have ethyl, which has a higher priority, and we have learned then how to call it a trans isomer. We do the hydrogenation. Now you get both of them are same stereochemistry, S and S. And of course, as I said, this can happen from bottom side also. If it comes from the bottom, you get two stereos, R and R, and they are formed in equal amounts because there is no directing effect for this to be specific enantiomer, and so this will be a racemic mixture. And again, you can draw this Fischer projection, and then you can see that there is no element of symmetry in this one. So this is chiral, but as I said, like you get a equal amount of both these compounds. So syn hydrogenation also is the stereospecific example of a stereospecific reaction. And this is the trans hydroxylation. Again, the mechanism of the reaction is such that you only get a trans product in this one. This is done by per acid. So you use a formic acid and hydrogen peroxide. So it forms a HCO3H, so per acid. And the way mechanism of the reaction is shown here, that how it gets epoxidized. And then olefin, and then epoxidation is cis epoxidation, right? So both the hydrogens are down, and this epoxide oxygen is coming above the plane. And of course, the reaction conditions, if it is such that the acid remains in the solution, then it opens up the epoxide. What happens, you get a carboxylic acid as shown here at the bottom, and this carboxylic acid H plus will react with the oxygen here coordinate, and then you get a O plus H, and then this epoxide carboxylate anion will be there, so that can open this epoxide. So you get a hydroxyl and this formate ester. And then in presence of base, you can cleave this one, and then you get a diol. So earlier we have seen the potassium permanganate, osmium tetroxide, they give cis diol. And this is one example where you can get a trans diol. But as I said, like a mechanism of the reaction, in this one you will not get any cis diol. And sometime, of course, we want to stop the reaction in the epoxide stage itself. Then we use some kind of buffer so that this carboxylic acid does not remain as an acid, and it can deprotonate this acid. It will not deprotonate the per acid, but it will deprotonate the acid that is formed. So it does not get protonated and further opening of the epoxide to get the. And this is for you to think about that. Carboxylic acid, for example, formic acid, pKa is 3.3. pKa is like it shows the strength of the acid, and this is 3.6, and this is more acidic than its corresponding per acid, formic acid. So it has a 7.1, and acetic acid has a pKa 4.8. Acetic acid is like a vinegar, what we use all the time. And its corresponding per acid has a pKa of 8.2. So you think about that why it is not part of the course, but why per acid is less acidic than normal acid, formic acid or acetic acid. And again, another stereospecific reaction will be bromination of olefin, and you can see that like a if you have a cis double bond, you treat it with bromine, and the bromine, one bromine comes from the top, one bromine comes from the bottom. And earlier you have seen that when you do the cis addition onto a cis double bond, we get meso compound, and whereas the trans double bond gives the racemic mixture, whereas bromination, since the like a mode of addition is trans, so we get a racemic mixture from the cis olefin. But again, I caution you, don't try to memorize all these things. So any substrate is given, you just work out what is the product that you are expected to get, and trans double bond will give you a meso compound. And let us see the mechanism of reaction. As I said, like in this reaction, the mechanism will be such that you get only one product, and first bromine will form a bromonium species, 3-membered ring, and then another bromide will be there, and then this bromide can attack either this center or that center. It does not matter in this case because we have a symmetrical olefin, and so you can get a mixture of the two compounds, and you can see that they are in equal amounts, and so they form racemic mixture. And if it is a trans olefin, the same thing you will do. You get a bromonium ion, and then if you rotate this one, you can see that you can draw the molecule in such a way that one plane of symmetry goes through the molecule, and it's a meso compound. You can also have a cyclic olefin, like a cyclopentene, for example. And again, you have a bromine adding in the trans fashion, so you can get either RR on this molecule, or you get SS. And since you get equal amount of both these, so it will be a racemic mixture. And again, the same mechanism. So you form a bromonium species, and if bromine attacks this center, you get RR isomer. If bromine attacks other center, then you get SS isomer, and they are formed in equal amounts. You can do the same exercise again if this bromonium species is formed from the bottom, and it will be the same scenario that bromide coming from the top and attacking, and you can do this exercise and find out that you are getting the same RR and SS isomers. And sometime there could be some exceptions, so I will explain little bit, but you need not worry about it, because this bromine, for example, was supposed to have given this substrate, right, in 100% yield. That means you get a bromonium species here, and then suppose it comes from the top, bromonium, and this bromide is coming from the bottom. That means there's a hydrogen here. I have not drawn. Let me see if I can point out. Not drawn the hydrogen, so there is a hydrogen here, and there is one hydrogen here. And suppose the bromine is coming from the top. Borderline means this is plus. Now the bromide will come selectively from here and from bottom side. So that's why the bromine is drawn here as a dashed line, and this bromine, since particular this one is coming from the top, this bromine is above the plane, and this bromine is up. It should have been 100%. Because we have always said that these are stereospecific reaction, and the mechanism says that we should have got only this product, but you get 12% yield of this other product also, this which is like we call it syn product, and sometimes we call it this one is an anti-product. Let me see the interruption. Yeah, so if you go to the mechanism of this reaction, as I said, like if you form a bromonium species, and the bromine should have come here, so this is, you get 88% yield. But this phenyl ring, there's a slight positive charge here, because normally they don't open up, because these two centers of the carbon atom should be identical for the nucleophile in other cases. But when we have a phenyl, and if some amount remains in this form, like a plus charge here, and bromine is coming here, then like this gets stabilized by this resonance stabilization. So you can change this double bond, you can bring here, and then all the canonical forms you can draw, and you can see this is getting stabilized. Now when the bromine comes, and the bromine can come from the top, or it can come from the bottom. So this little bit amount of this substrate is all formed like a syn product, which is attacking into this carbon, which is like a planar now, and so it gives rise to 12% of the syn product, so which was not expected otherwise. And you can also think about that why a substrate like when you have a methoxy substituent, why the amount of the required product is going down, and you get more reaction going through the carbocation pathway. And similarly, if you have electron withdrawing group, then you get more of the stereo-specific product, anti-product. So you can think about those mechanism, and I will stop here today, and next class we'll talk about a few other reactions. So what we have learned here, how to construct a stereo center, and the first one we talked about is cis hydroxylation. Cis hydroxylation using osmium tetroxide and potassium permanganate, and little bit we know the mechanism of this reaction. We know the cis hydrogenation using a catalyst, hydrogen and palladium charcoal or platinum charcoal, and then we talked about trans hydroxylation, again stereo-specific, and these are all diastereo-specific reaction, not enantiospecific, because the starting material or any of the reagent, there is no chirality. So the relative stereochemistry of these two are fixed by the mechanism of the reaction. So you get a trans hydroxylation, we get a cis, trans bromination also, and we learn the mechanism how it forms a bromonium ion. And there could be some cases where you don't get 100% of the specific product, but you get selective product. Although bromine and CCl4 should have given only this anti-compound, but we get some amount of CN1. And we learned, how to explain these anomalous result because some amount of reaction goes to the carbocation mechanism. And if you have any question, then I'll be happy to answer. And otherwise, you can ask tomorrow. Today, sometime in the after a few hours, I will load this assignment, and we'll give the time, maybe whatever is written there in the calendar. So you can do the assignment based on what has been taught up to the last class, not today's lecture. And any question anybody is having?
Sir, sir, for a meso compound, can it possess a center of symmetry or an axis of symmetry?
Which one?
A meso compound.
It can have both. So you find out any particular compounds. For example, you write the mesotartaric acid. It can have a plane of symmetry. It can have a center of symmetry. It can also have alternating axis of symmetry. So sometimes all of these symmetry elements may not be present in a particular compound, but depends on what kind of compound you have. At least one of them is present. Of course, it is not chiral. So meso compound, at least tartaric acid in this case, possibly have all of three of them. So you can do that exercise yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So with respect to like the rotation angle, if it's like plus 180 or minus 180, can you differentiate between the two?
I don't know exactly plus 180 plus minus 180. I think it should be possible, because if you take, for example, the concentration less, suppose the 180 degree, you are seeing with 1 gram per ml, right? So if it is 0.1 gram per ml substrate, if you take, and then it will show less rotation, plus 18 degree. So we'll go it by plus 180 then. We will not write minus 180. Huh?
But I mean, how would you even differentiate if you, because like
it's a number, like it does not matter if it is plus as I said, like if it comes so that like the value is exactly plus 180, I will write plus 180. I will not write minus 180 because people have done experiment at different concentration and found out that it varies, like a plus 18 to say plus 36 and like that, and it does not go to the minus if you lower the concentration. So specific rotation, I will write a 180.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And sometimes, some substrates are there where specific rotation can go even 1000. Right? It can go 800. So, but we still write plus 800 or minus 800. Some of the kind of compound called helicin, they have very high specific rotation. That means they give very high rotation with a very small concentration. And when like for example, if you have 100 is the angle of rotation plus 100, and with a concentration 0.01, so like or like a 0.1, then what is the rotation you are getting? You are getting a specific rotation of 1000. So it not necessarily like it has to be limited to only up to 360 degree. So it can be more because we are what do you call dividing it by the concentration, and very small amount can give a very large rotation, and then specific rotation will be very high for some substrates.
Sir, can you go back to that enantiomeric excess slide?
Tell me, what you want to know. Enantiomeric excess is basically R minus S.
It's basically, yeah, but
So if you have a 90% R and 10% S, then we'll call it enantiomeric excess as 80.
Yeah, but I think there were two different formulas on that slide. I was just confirming them.
Very similar, because sometimes we don't know the specific rotation of the pure substrate. Suppose I have made a new compound and I don't know, nobody has reported the specific rotation. So if I measure the specific rotation of that substrate and try to determine the enantiomeric excess, then I'll not be able to determine, because I don't know. I get 100, but actual reported one, if it is 125, it has a meaning that I can determine enantiomeric excess. But if it is not reported, then there are ways to find out how much of the each enantiomer I have got. I will come to that one either by separation or by chiral column or by some derivatization. I can find out how much of the two enantiomers. Suppose I got 195 and another one 5, chiral center. That can be determined by various methods, other methods. And once I know the concentration, then I use the formula. Simple formula is one is, as I said, 95 minus 590 divided by 200 into 100 kind of thing. Or, like you can say the 95 minus 5, that is a more simple formula, and you can get enantiomeric excess. Let me go back to the slide. Yeah. So if you see that R minus S at the bottom, yeah. So this is like a 90. R plus S, of course, 100 multiplied by 100. So this becomes same, like a 90% enantiomeric excess. R and S are the mole fractions of R and S, so that R plus S equal to 1. You okay?
Yeah, okay. Actually, I was just
simplest way will be to know R minus S. Yeah, tell me.
the like let's say that the observed rotation is 109, but then like from the like the alpha the lemon thing, it's considered at what concentration? Like, are these two considered at the same concentration?
No. 109 is sorry, it should be specific rotation, not like a not observed rotation. It should be specific rotation. I have made a mistake. Your experimental specific rotation is showing plus 109, whereas this is actual specific rotation is 123. So it is not now. Once you write a specific rotation, although we write the concept, but normally it has been sort of normalized with a different concentration divided by concentration and all. Okay. But when we report, we write normally, like the concentration, but it varies with the concentration, and then with a lower concentration you can have a lower rotation. But this one is not observed rotation. What I have written here should be specific measured specific rotation, and this is the pure substrate. Enantiomer is 123, and so we say 88.6.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. If not, you can clarify some of the doubts. You read all this about more. If you want to read, you can read anywhere, the book, or if you have the access to the books, or you can read it in the internet through Google. And if you have more questions, you can clarify tomorrow in the class, tutorial classes. Okay, I'll take leave now. We'll meet again on Monday at 8:30.